Hey, this is Mr. Willis, and I want to show you just a couple tricks with transitions and animations in Adobe Premiere. So I'm looking at an example here that was made by 5th grader Chucky Goff for one of our bug videos, and a couple cool things that he did. First, with the opening clip that we have here, you'll see as I move across the timeline that gradually, fades in, kind of almost like the sun is rising here at the beginning. The way he did that is he had his clip here, our kind of background picture, which is just this kind of, Western picture that you see here. And then he went to the transitions button over here on the right side. And underneath transitions, I'm just going to go to, you've got all these different categories. I'm going to go to the dissolve category. And he used one that's just called cross dissolve. Okay, and he just grabbed that, drug it right down here, and you'll see how it can place it right there on the front of the video. Now once you've put a dissolve on there, a couple cool things you can do with it. You can click on that little transitions that has appeared, and you can actually double click it to see some options here about whether you want it to fade into the clip that's on the right or the clip that's on the left. And you can also change the length of it. So right here, if I put my mouse right at the edge of it, you see how it kind of puts that little red bar on the end, so I could make the transition go very quickly. If we do this right here, you see there it fades in pretty quickly, whereas if I stretch it out more, which is what Chucky did, then the transition looks more like this. See that? It's a little slower, it's a little bit more dramatic, which is very cool. Now, the next thing that he did is when we have our words start to appear, the bug gulch words. Notice how they actually are going to spin in on the screen like that. Okay, so the way he did that little spin effect was actually another transition. In this case, he used a transition called zoom, okay, and this is actually what makes the pictures go from being far away to being closer. So that's another one of those transitions. You click on the transition button, and zoom is another category here, and he actually just used the one called zoom there. Cross zoom is another cool one. You can kind of play with which one you like, but he used the zoom one to make them come in. Now the actual flipping, okay, the spinning that you see, that was not the zoom. The way we do that is that's where we actually apply some animation. Okay, so here's how we do this part. Watch closely. First, I'm going to click on the clip that I want to animate, that I want to change. So this is, in this case, it's these words, bug gulch. Then I'm going to go over here and click on the FX button that has a little pencil by it. And this is kind of my, I like to call this my edit FX button. So this lets me edit any effects that are on this one. And with this particular clip, the effect that he edited is the one called motion, which is where you get to do most of the animation stuff. All right, so when we drop down the motion, a couple things we can change. We can change the position, which you see an easy way. You can actually type in numbers to change the position, or you'll notice once we've clicked on it, we have these blue squares that have appeared over here. I can actually just physically click and move this, okay, and move it around on the screen for where I want it to be. The scale lets you make it bigger or smaller. And then, if I were to draw that down a little bit, you see it's tiny or it's huge. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and undo that real quick. Or there's also the rotation, which actually makes the thing rotate. And that's kind of what we're going to do to make that spinning effect, is we're going to change the rotation. Now, all of these right here, I could change just to kind of change where it is on the screen right now as it appears. But if you want it to actually move, that's where we have to push this little button right here, which looks like a stopwatch. And this shows us something called keyframes. All right, and this is the key to animating stuff. What you do once you've got this little part of the menu up, you're just seeing just another version of the timeline. You see how when I move this little bar across, it moves the video forward and backward. Okay, and all you've got to do is say, all right, at one point in the video, like let's say, when the video is right here at the beginning, I want the rotation on my words here to be at 0, which basically means they're, right where they start. And then I'm going to move forward in the video a couple of seconds. And then what he did here is he changed the rotation, and he actually did, I remember he typed in a crazy number, like I think he did like 1080, which if you divide that up comes out to basically 3 full rotations, okay? 360 degrees in a rotation, but you can just, you know, experiment with different numbers here. And so he put that number in there, and so that means if it's at a rotation of 0 here and a rotation of 1080 over here, then in that little bit of time in between these two keyframes, it's going to make up that difference. And so there it is, going from 0 rotation to over 1000. And because that's so many rotations, you see the whole thing spin round and round. Now, notice when they're this close, when I'll hit play here just to kind of see it. You'll see it move, the timer move here, and you'll see the clip move over here. That makes the rotation move pretty quickly, right? But here, let me bring that back up. If I were to grab these keyframes and then move them over, so let's move it way over here. Watch the difference that this makes in the rotation. Okay, it's spinning much more slowly. And so you can really affect, you know, if you want like a quick zoom animation, which is kind of what Chucky wanted when he was spinning in his logo here, then you want to keep those back there pretty close. So I'll hit undo to get those, you know, get that back here so it's a quick spin. Sometimes you want a slower movement, then you can use that. But that's really all there is to it. You could do the same thing with the position, with the scale. You could make it be really close 1 second by turning the scale way up, and then you can make it be further away a few seconds later by turning the scale down later on in the timeline. Okay? All you've got to do is hit the little stopwatch by whatever thing you want to change. So you see there the scale's set to that, and then I can move forward and say, now set the scale up here. And now it's going to make that difference as it moves forward. All right, so it's just about setting those keyframes up, and the trick is timing them out, making the timing the right amount you want to make the movement fast or slow enough, and just making that your stop, making sure that your beginning point and stop point make sense. Like right here, not so good of a stop point, so I'm going to undo what I did so that it gets back to the way Chucky had it looking, which is what we want right there. And that makes, you know, the title look a whole lot better. Finally, if you just want to see what he did on the bottom there, or underneath, he just has just an explosion here, and he just used the simple zoom transition with that too, just to make the explosion start small and then get big. After that, the only other thing he did was he timed in some sound effects. So you see he has some music playing in the very background. He added the sound of a whip crack here, the sound of an explosion. As soon the whip crack is when, you know, Bug Gulch first appears. The explosion is that fireball going in the background, and then we have the cowboy making that yee-haw when it's at the end. And all together, it comes together like this. And the end result is very cool. All right, so maybe that gives you some ideas, and if you have questions, of course, ask me in class. I'll be there.